Welcome back to the Matchbook NFL podcast. It's week 18, and Judah, Sam, and Drew are fresh off their Christmas week bye week. I'm your host, Daniel. Drew, I'll get straight into you. Everyone, all the listeners want to know, where were you week 17? How did your betting go? How was your Christmas? You're back home now, so tell us how your few days went.
So if you want to think of like maybe 4 of the worst sides to be on last week, I was on all 4 of them. I took some swings on the Panthers. Didn't only just take the points, played the money line. They get shut out. That was miserable. I laid it with the Eagles, thinking, what a get right spot here. They take comfortable lead into halftime and blow it for the first time since I can remember. There was even worse ones. Oh yeah, I thought the Dolphins were going to be competitive. They were not. The list goes on and on. A couple of totals came through for me, which helped keep my head above water a bit. And then the Packers was a big one for me on Sunday night to help salvage something. But it was an absolutely lovely holiday, with the exception of the results of the NFL betting. And I guess not exactly where you want to be in terms of confidence, in terms of looking at the board and looking at your results as we head into the business end of the season. So I'm going to need to chat it out with you. Actually, you know what? This is because we took the week off. I didn't hear from you guys. I didn't get the appropriate feedback to know, kind of have my head in the right spot for picking sides, and that's what went wrong. But no, I'm glad to be back. It was a lovely holiday. Happy New Year's to you guys and the listeners and everybody watching. And looking forward to the playoffs, which look like we might have like an all-timer with the way that this field is setting up.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'm really looking forward to this week and beyond. And Drew, like you said, the best thing about this podcast is disagreement, back and forth. Listeners can make their own minds up. Sam, I'm going to ask you how your Christmas was, but Drew mentioned the Packers. Like Jordan Love, he's your guy. You nailed your colors to the mast, no matter how much you want to get out. And I was just talking to Judah off some of his throws against the Vikings off the back foot. I just thought, is this guy? Could he be the real deal in a few years?
I don't want to buy into it again. He does look so good, doesn't he? He really does. But I mean, I am still a little bit concerned about what we saw earlier in the season. So I don't want to be anointing him just yet. But he does look really good. And well, we'll talk about the Packers in a bit anyway, I think. But really good Christmas. Enjoyed it thoroughly. For I think the 3rd week in a row, I hoodwinked myself by thinking Darren Waller was going to score a touchdown. I'm absolutely sick of him. No Giants chat today, please.
Oh,
we'll try our best. We'll see how far we get. Judah, how was your Christmas, bud? And strong enough betting week for you last week?
Yeah, I mean, the holiday season can't be better if we have days full of football. That was my favorite way of spending any holiday. The bets went well, thankfully. Came a little bit shy of some big same game parlays or multiples, but so it often goes. And I'm just so excited for a week 18 where we had what seems like many more games that actually matter, like very, very few just totally washouts. And then, as Drew said, I am so stoked for this playoffs. I think it's going to be one of the best playoffs we've seen in a while.
It's an open year. Our week 17 coincided with New Year's Eve for those in the UK and Ireland, and I actually missed the countdown for midnight, such how good the football was on Red Zone about 0003. I looked at my mate going, we missed the countdown. We were too busy trying to cheer on our bets, ultimately losers, but well worth staying up for those 7 hours of commercial-free TV. The last one is this Sunday. We'll cover a couple of those games on Sunday, but also the primetime games as well. Before we get going, on YouTube, if you do hit that like button, that'll be much appreciated. And leave a comment for the guys on your best week 18 bet and who's going to win the Super Bowl. Call it early for the guys. And any questions, do leave them below as well. Other than that, we'll get straight in. The 4 games that we thought had the most on the line: Jags Titans, Texans Colts, Bears Packers, and the Bills at the Dolphins. We will start in race card order here. So we will go with the Jags against the Titans and take a look at the betting that we currently have on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. You can see there the Jags are 145 favorites. Titans 2.92. The Titans are getting a 4.5 head start at 196, and the total here is 40. A little bit shaded towards the over 192. So, Judah, we'll start with you, bud, on this one. Any sort of where you leaning for a bet here, and set the game up for the listeners here in terms of what both these teams need.
Yeah, not a spot for me that I'll be betting, just because of how far and how bullish the market is on the Jaguars. Kind of seeing a 5.5 where this game is in Tennessee. That's kind of implying a massive jump from where the Jaguars have been the past couple of weeks. I think there's still some Trevor Lawrence concern. Even if he does play, he's clearly not 100%. And it's not as if it's like, a ankle injury where just like limiting his mobility slightly. This is a shoulder injury. If he has a little bit less of a, zip on his throws, that matters a lot. I think this is, Christian Kirk might come back. That helps on the margins, I think. But this is a Jaguars team that the market is really, really upgrading. I think that they, on defense, can kind of get to, I assume it's going to be Ryan Tannehill at quarterback based on Will Levis leaving with injury. That's another question mark. But I assume this is a Jaguars defense that can get home. They've been able to generate a bunch of pressure. They're top 10 and, quick pressure rate over the last bunch of weeks. That's kind of the Titans' Achilles heel. But at the same time, this is also a Titans team that is going to be throwing the ball a lot deep downfield. That's highly variant. Their offense has struggled, but if they hit on, 2 or 3 of these deep balls, which they surely will take, and this is a Jaguar secondary, which has been struggling, they can definitely put up points in this spot. And I'd just be concerned about the Jaguars offense, given how inept they've been the last bunch of weeks. I don't think everyone's fully healthy. That matters. And the market is basically pricing the Jags as if this is like week 7 or 8 with a fully healthy and capable Jaguars offense. It's simply not the team they are right now.
Okay, yes, Sam, it's the classic case with a team motivated versus a team with nothing to play for, bar a bit of divisional pride. So in that sense, you're looking towards perhaps an underplay here.
Yeah, I'm taking the under. I think there's still, like Judah said, so much we kind of don't really know about Trevor Lawrence, whether he's going to play, whether he's going to be in any sort of condition to play, even if he does. I would suspect he's not going to be in particularly great health, which I think makes this a lot of an easier play for me in taking the under on 40. We're unsure what's going to happen with the Titans at quarterback. That seems a bit up in the air. And at the end of the day, this is a Titans offense that has averaged 17.3 points per game this season. I don't think they're particularly good, but I think we're going to see a really hamstrung Jaguars offense because they've just not looked particularly good, or at least not as good as we know they can be for a little bit of time now, which is a bit of a concern. I think if you're Jacksonville, you almost want to do the bare minimum to scrape the win here. Just keep everybody healthy and get ready for next week. But I just think this has just a really boring stinker of a game kind of vibe to it. I don't like the way the team kind of is coming into this. And yeah, I've got to take the under.
Okay, that's under 40. Currently available around 195 on Matchbook. Drew, you'd like to play Titans 5.5. Currently the line's 4.5, but look, that could change a little bit depending on injuries, etc. So talk us through your thought process here and what you expect maybe the line to close and when people should perhaps pull the trigger for a bet.
Okay, yeah. I mean, people who have been watching Jaguars markets or really just watching Jaguars injury reports for the last half of the year, they're playing like this is a must-win season. They're pushing their guys in, playing them through injuries to their own detriment, as we've seen with Trevor Lawrence's degradation in terms of health and performance. So that kind of indicates to me that you're going to get the question marks like Lawrence is going to go. Zay Flowers is probably going to go. They're going to play their offensive linemen who are beaten up. Like this is everybody who's available is going to be out there for the Jags, I believe. And to me, that says market will probably steam a bit once you get that confirmation, particularly with Lawrence. And if this gets to 6, that would be my buy point for the Titans. If we don't ever get a 6, I'm okay taking 5.5 with the Tennessee in contests because I do think this is going to be a competitive game. I do think this is one of those markets where there's a premium on the team that must win, as opposed to what would be a fair price between these two teams. I think it will be Tannehill almost certainly over Levis. I think Tannehill is a meaningful upgrade over Levis. I think Tannehill has something to play for here because he needs to prove to everyone who's looking for, what's our quarterback solution going to be next year. He needs to prove that he's a guy that they should bring in and consider as a starting job still. And that's just to say he's not likely to lay down. He may be on his back because the Titans offensive line is the worst in football and the Jaguars pass rush found some form last week. So now this is a little bit different situation. It's clearly different for the Jags pass rush when they're at home versus on the road. It's clearly different for the Titans offensive line when they're on the road versus at home. So I am fine kind of neutralizing the pass rush a hair in my head in terms of expectation. And that gives me enough, kind of interest in Titans because other than kind of the flashes from Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker finally showed up on the stat sheet last week, like other than the small wins that they've had at the pass rush position, the Jaguars defense is really, really flawed. Like, they can be taken advantage of. This is a familiar opponent. The Titans are very clearly stating how they are treating this game seriously. Like, they want to be the spoiler. We know this about Vrabel. We know this about sort of the mentality in that building. And I've had a wild roller coaster ride with the Jaguars this season, where coming into the year, I thought, hey, this is a team with upside to get the 1 seed in a weaker AFC than people realize. They're a good futures bet to the middle of the season, where I was like, wow, this defense is wildly overrated by market, and they're going to come back to earth. And if the offense doesn't take a step forward, they're cooked. Well, the offense took a step backwards because Trevor Lawrence tore his MCL. He sprained high ankle sprain, got a concussion, and then sprained his shoulder. Like, he's dealing with 4 non-trivial injuries right now, which affect his mobility, affected his accuracy. And if he comes out and throws darts to Calvin Ridley, then I'm paying to see it. Like, if Calvin Ridley has an amazing matchup in this game, he was incredible against the Titans. The first time these two teams played, the Titans' pass defense stinks. But I think I need to see Lawrence be able to attack the part of the field where Ridley is most effective, which is along the sidelines, 11 to 25 yards down the field. That's a tough pass to make. It's a particularly tough pass to make when you're dealing with, a sprained shoulder. So I think this is, ultimately the Jaguars, the rightful favorites, sure. But I think this is an opportunity to swing on the Titans, as you're getting a couple of free points. And, I like, in full transparency, I'm going to have a big red number in my book betting the AFC South this year. I thought almost certainly the Jaguars were going to come apart at the seams after that loss to the Niners off the bye week and some of the injuries that Trevor Lawrence was dealing with. Somehow, some way, because they have won the tiebreakers against these divisional opponents, they still sit in a very favorable position right now. I'm going to probably lose some serious bets on Colts and Texans to win the South, on top of the fact that I passed on Jags to win the South in the preseason and only played them to do some damage in the playoffs, which I now have zero confidence in. So, I'm kind of upside down on this team. I'm kind of upside down in this division. And, I think if there's any kind of karmic, support for me here, the Titans will pull off the win, and the winner of Colts Texans will go to as a 4 seed, and hopefully it's the Texans, because that's a much more interesting matchup against the Browns, as far as I could tell you, than Jaguars Titans would, and then Jaguars Browns would be.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of bets there. Just if you switched a few around there, Drew, but it's actually plus 5.5, as Drew touched on. Across the board in the UK, more or less. So it'd be interesting to see, can we get that number to 6 come kick off in the injury report. And Sam's locking in under 40 as a bet there. And we'll actually go back in time. I thought we were going the right way around here, but Texans at Colts will be played beforehand, and we'll take a look at the betting that we currently have on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. You can back Texans 188 favorites on the money line, the Colts 2.04. The Colts are getting a 1 point head start at around even money, and the total for this is 47. So yeah, Sam set this game up. I mean, it was just great seeing CJ Stroud back. It's great following him all year. He's such an exciting quarterback. We want to see him in the playoffs. Can they get over the line here this weekend?
Yeah, I think CJ Stroud is a guy we've talked about quite a lot on this podcast this season, probably more than most other quarterbacks in the league. I think with good reason. Just seeing him back on the field, I mean, what a huge upgrade. And he looked better than I thought he would, to be honest with you, on his return. And for me, I'm taking Texans -1 here. I think they're the better team, and I think ultimately, when it comes down to a game like this, it's always about the quarterback, but it really, really does matter here. And Gardner Minshew, we know what he is by now. He is capable of magic, but he is also capable of turnovers and some horrific play at times. And I think Stroud is simply light years better than he is. I think kind of what really has shone through about CJ Stroud this year is how, despite being a rookie, he's kind of really taken that team on his back at times and just push them to wins. He's shown that he could battle through adversity. And I think in a game like this in Indianapolis, he's going to kind of need to show all those skills. And there's no Noah Brown, there's no Robert Woods, we've got no Tank Dell, obviously. So it's just going to be Dalton Schultz and Nico Collins, and arguably the worst running back room in the entire league. I think that's enough. I am more than happy to back the Texans to win this. And I saw something on Twitter think it's this weekend. It's about the teams that the Colts have played in the past 8 games and who's been playing at quarterback for those teams. And it is a who's who of absolute trash. We have Bryce Young, Matt Jones, Baker Mayfield, Will Levis, Jake Browning, Mitch Trubisky, Taylor Heineke, and Aidan O'Connell. Admittedly, I calling them trash is probably a bit harsh, but they are not kind of top level guys. You'd say only Jake Browning has kind of really performed at a particularly high standard this season when he's come in. And I think ultimately this is an issue that are the Colts as good as the market kind of is pricing them up to be? I'm not convinced that they are, whereas I do absolutely believe in the Texans, and I think we've seen evidence this year that when their backs are against the wall, they get the job done. So yeah, I'm all over the Texans here.
Okay, and Judah, you're in full agreement here with the Texans. You want to play a little bit, eke out a little bit more juice there with the Texans -2.5 ticket.
Yeah, I like Texans -2.5. I'd also like something like 5.5, 6.5. I think Sam touched on a lot of this, of just like, you can simply say this as like CJ Stroud is the far better quarterback. I think that's true. And I also kind of have some like trigger points, if you will, of when I want to bet CJ Stroud. And that is going up against an opponent who cannot generate pressure. Right? CJ Stroud has some of the most drastic splits when his pocket's clean. Or if it's congested and the pass rusher is getting home. He is by far the best quarterback in the NFL with a clean pocket. I think that's also a function of the fact that he is so aggressive downfield and so good throwing downfield, and that plays in perfectly to this matchup with the Colts, who are bottom 10 in pressure rate. I think they have the 6th worst pressure rate. They are allowing a bottom 10 rate of explosive pass plays. This is exactly the type of matchup where CJ Stroud can excel. And I think the point about the Texans wide receivers being at, like, I think it matters to some extent, but let's not forget and take a step back that before this season, Nico Collins and Tank Dell were a bunch of nobodies, right? I don't think it's a coincidence that these are some of the best wide receivers, frankly, some of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And I think that's a lot of a Stroud thing, more so than it is Collins and Dell. These guys didn't just all of a sudden become terrific players. I think we got to give some credit and deference to Stroud's ability to elevate his receivers. On the flip side of this game, this is a Texans run defense, which over the past couple of months has been the second best in the NFL by basically any efficiency metric, just right behind the New England Patriots. And that matters a lot because of how the Colts kind of run their offense, relying on their run game to set up kind of third and manageables, third and shorts. I think this is going to be a spot where Minshew is forced to be in a lot of these kind of obvious passing situations, which to Sam's point plays into turnovers and a bunch of the kind of being on the right side of the variance there of Minshew making a bunch of bad plays. And the Texans pass rush has really come along over the last bunch of weeks. Will Anderson has really taken the next step. Honestly, not a terrible bet for Defensive Rookie of the Year, especially if he has a big game in the spot. And to just add to this, the Colts have 2 of their best offensive linemen, Ryan Kelly and Quentin Nelson, both missed practice yesterday. If those guys miss, this is a banged-up offensive line. I think you're getting the better quarterback in a great matchup. And on the flip side, this is exactly the kind of situation where Gardner Minshew can kind of slip up a bit, have a bunch of third and longs. That's the spot where he's going to create a bunch of turnovers. I really like the Texans 2.5, and I'd be fine taking them kind of on bigger alts at 5.5, 6.5 as well.
Okay, maybe a fun one to play a bit of alternative handicaps pro the Texans. Drew, the reason left you to last year, you didn't have enough to back CJ Stroud and Texans, but you are playing a total. Just give us the 1 or 2 reservation perhaps you have on maybe taking the Texans like the 2 guys did there.
Yeah, and I get Judah's points about the wide receiving core, but being down to only Nico Collins concerns me for whatever reason. And I think it's because where CJ Stroud prefers to attack the field and where Bobby Slowick knows he is good at attacking the field. His most sincere connections are to the wide receivers, not to Dalton Schultz. And so him kind of being option 2 in the passing game is concerning to me. Just kind of for the record, I'm expecting Noah Brown and Robert Woods out here. I think Laramie Tunsil goes. I think basically you're going to be full strength on defense. I know Will Anderson and Rankins and Collins and Greenard, they all missed practice. I think all of those guys will go. But the fact that this is a short week for these players, and in particular the offensive skill position group, I'm just a little concerned that you're looking at a relatively one-dimensional offense where every successful play is coming on the arm of CJ Stroud to Nico Collins. Like, that's a fragile, connection. Nico Collins realistically could have 20 targets in this game, and it wouldn't shock me. If the Colts have an answer for that defensively, then I could see a much more kind of closely contended field position punts type of contest here. The stakes are extremely high, as has been well covered. I don't think anyone really could deny that. And, when you have games like this that are effectively a playoff game with some inexperienced coaches, inexperienced players, like these guys can get tight, and this can turn into a little bit of a, team with the ball last wins type of situation. So Gardner Minshew and the points about his disparity, relative quality between Stroud and Minshew, yeah, they're on different planets. There's no denying that. And also, like, the reason I didn't back the Colts here is very clearly the Texans' run defense is amazing, and this is going to be on the arm of Gardner Minshew, and that has been successful at times against defenses that have weaknesses at CB2, CB3. You've seen a little bit of pop plays from Josh Downs and Alec Pierce, but these guys are not kind of dependable week in, week out targets, as far as I can tell you. And if your plan A is to run into the teeth of the Texans defense, and then you have a lot of 3rd and longs where Gardner Minshew is trying to make something crazy happen against the pass rush that has life all of a sudden, I can see some struggling here from the Colts offense as well. So I think this is going to come down to fumble luck, the special teams execution, field goal kicking. There's a bit of a whiff of something unexpected is going to really matter in this game, and in that degree, the Colts are at home, which is, I think, maybe a small X factor in their favor. So enough to keep me from betting the Texans, surely, but enough to also make me look at a total that was 47.5 and say, how in the world are we getting to 47.5 in this game? And yes, the Colts are an over team. Like, Slaken plays fast. And if it's run, incomplete pass, you could have a lot of possessions in this game. So it's going to be a sweat. I don't doubt that. I like having, as long as you're betting, on the right side of the key number of 47, I think you're in good shape to play the under here. I think 46.5 would be my fare. And I would expect that this is a game decided by field goals, not touchdowns. And I'm hopeful that the Texans win. I'm hopeful the Texans go to the playoffs. I'm hopeful that they're healthier in the playoffs than they are now. I'm shocked that we're at week 18 and I'm making decisions based on stuff like, well, Noah Brown's not available, but that's where we are.
Every under is a sweat, Drew, I think. But no, take your points that it could have a lot of plays in this game. Under 47, the selection for Drew and Pro Texans from Judah and Sam. What is this going to be, a Thursday night football production, Saturday night, or what is it going to be? Is it? Because I know there's a Monday night game on a Saturday there too.
This one is Saturday night. I think it's on NBC, but I don't recall.
Okay, cool. It's Bears at Packers next. We have another divisional matchup, as they all are. Bears 2.4 money line, Packers 163. The point spread sees the Bears get a 3-point head start on the handicap, and the total is 44. Drew, this is a pass for you ultimately on a bet, but where you thinking here? I was speaking off air about Jordan Love as we were talking at the start of the show. What ultimately made you a no bet here? Have you some concerns on both sides? I'll take it.
Yeah, so one correction, retraction. It's the ESPN ABC. It is the primetime game on Saturday, Texans Colts. So the Bears Packers was ultimately a pass for me because I really am not sure what to expect out of the Bears offense against the Packers defense. The Packers defense is sort of the ultimate wild card right now. A couple of weeks we've seen them show up and play absolutely outstanding football, and then there's been a couple of weeks in there, like the week they played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where it was like nobody was doing their job. If you're up against a quarterback who happens to be playing with confidence in that particular game, and your defense is playing, Ole style tackling and giving wide receivers, 15 yards of separation, that's not going to spell success up against the likes of, DJ Moore, who's having an all-pro season, and Justin Fields, who all of a sudden is playing very, very well right now. The fact that you have a dual threat and a strong running game for the Bears is also a little bit of a concern for me in terms of the Packers finding a way to cover. But I do think that the Bears defense, in particular, the pass defense, is a little bit susceptible here. Jalen Johnson banged up. I don't know if he will ultimately be available. But if he does not go, all of a sudden this line looks exactly correct to me, because the secondary for the Bears is a little bit of a question mark, and Jordan Love is playing very well right now in terms of just decision making, and Matt LaFleur is scheming up outstanding outstanding routes and sequencing his plays quite well to really frustrate defenses. So if that continues, this could be a higher scoring game. I think ultimately 44 to the over would be the only bet I could really advocate for. But 3 to me looks exactly correct in terms of the difference between these two teams. And I think Packers will likely win and get a playoff spot clinched. And hopefully it's the 7th seed and we'll get, Dallas, Green Bay, little Mike McCarthy, for sentimentality for us olds who watch football, going up against this old Packer team. That'd be fun. I don't see a ton of angles into this one from a betting the side standpoint.
Okay, yeah, Sam, I smiled when I saw Justin Fields and how well he played last week. It's going exactly how you said. He finishes the season well. Maybe we don't need to invest in new quarterbacks. So what was your thinking ultimately to go against him here?
Yeah, it's happening again. I've seen Twitter there. Look, we don't need a quarterback. We just need another receiver to help our guy out. I still believe that they do need to take a quarterback while they have obviously such a great opportunity. Ultimately, I just don't totally buy this sort of Bears redemption narrative kind of that's going on at the moment. Is it 4 wins out for the last 5? They've beaten the Falcons, terrible. Cardinals, terrible. Vikings were just on a real down, and the Lions, who were, we know what they are. They can be exceptional, they can be terrible, and certainly in terms of defense, they're not very good. I just don't think they are brilliant. I think there's issues with the secondary this week that's only going to help out Jordan Love. And you kind of, when you talk about, we talked earlier about the 2 quarterbacks in Minshew and Stroud and the differences between them. And I think whilst Fields has looked better, this is still a guy that he is dual threat, but he's not Lamar Jackson. He's not going to beat you with his arm in the same way that Lamar Jackson can. I don't believe he hasn't thrown multiple touchdown passes in a game since week 5. He did have some time out. I just don't think he's that great. And whereas Love has been just playing lights out, he's had 2 or more passing touchdowns in all but 1 game since week 11, which is, I'd say, where he really kind of turned the corner on starting to look pretty damn good again. And only 1 interception in that time as well. So he's not turning the ball over particularly. And I think kind of that level of ball security, I think, is going to be really important here. And I think the Packers, home field, they're just going to get the job done. It's not going to be a spectacular performance by any means, but I think they are the better team here. I'm not buying the Bears at all. So Packers -2.5 for me.
Okay, Judah, Sam's not buying the Bears. Why should people listening buy the Bears this week at +3?
Yeah. I think we've been saying this for a couple of months now, that the Bears defense is probably the most underrated unit in the NFL. And I think that's still true. I've seen them still being rated around like 24th best defense. I think they're a top 5 unit by kind of any stretch since about week 6, which is when they got a bunch of their guys healthy. Sure, missing Jalen Johnson would be a little bit of a tough blow, but I'm not sure that he misses this game necessarily. And I also think this is kind of the exact spot for the Bears offense to succeed against a Packers defense, which has been absolutely dreadful over the last 2 months of the season. Sure, they got, a kind of nuts game script with Jaron Hall, who really did not look like an NFL quarterback last week, just inviting pressure, missing wide open guys. I mean, like, Bryce Young has put together 1 good performance in his season this year, and that was against Packers D. Same with Tommy DeVito, a bunch of these just really bad quarterbacks. And this is a Packers team which struggles to defend the run and struggles to stop teams from generating explosive plays. There over the last 2 months, allowing the 2nd highest rate of explosive plays in the NFL. This is exactly the offense that the Bears want to run, which is get the ball to their running backs, have Fields and the gravity that he carries just by virtue of him being a running threat. Run for 5 yards to carry. This is Packers D, which cannot stop the run, and then kind of let Justin Fields throw deep. Another kind of little note here is that the Packers have started to play a bunch more man coverage, which means we're probably going to get a bunch of snaps of like Corey Ballentine on DJ Moore, which is a massive, massive mismatch. All you need is, if you get 8 of those snaps, DJ Moore is going through running, 2 or 3 go routes. You connect on one of those, that changes this the entire complexion of this game. It's a great matchup for the Bears. They're still very, very underrated. on defense relative to market pricing. Can Jordan Love overcome that? Sure, but I want to see that first. He hasn't exactly earned that respect just yet, though the market seems to be kind of giving him credit for that. I'm going to be buying the Bears here. +3, I like them on the money line as well.
Okay, disagreement, Sam, with Packers -2.5. Judah locking in the Bears +3. Fascinating game. 25 past 9 in the UK, live on Sky. Final thought to you, Drew.
Yeah, I think if Jalen Johnson is out, this is a very strong overlook. And if he's in, I'm still probably going to play the over. I think we didn't mention one of the better units in this game, which is the Packers offensive line. Their pass protection has been absolutely superlative. And to a degree, some of the, like, hey, you look at week 11 to now, Bears are number 1 with a bullet in defensive DVOA. A lot of that has been the addition of Sweat and the more voracious pass rush that they bring to the table. Well, if that's neutralized, all of a sudden, I think the passing attack could be pretty successful against a defense without Jalen Johnson. So that's probably the most impactful injury in this game, and I think that influences the total more than the side. But Judah's points about the Bears offense against the Packers defense, I think, are very fair. And I think that's ultimately maybe why this is a clear overlook, because this could be score and answer type football.
Okay. Are we locking in over for you at 44, Drew?
Yeah, go ahead and
go on.
I'm gonna bet it anyway. It's just a matter of like I would put a bigger stake down if it was no Jalen Johnson.
Cool. We hear you. We hear you, producer Ryan. We'll update that on Matchbook Insights. We will go to the fourth game, Bills at Dolphins. I mean, wow, what a game to conclude week 18 and the NFL regular season. Bills 164 favorites, the Dolphins 244. The Dolphins getting a 3-point head start, and the total here is 49.5. Judah, I mean, firstly, we all agree ultimately on a bet, which I find absolutely amazing, just to have 3 agreements here. But look, the Dolphins last week, talked to us a little bit of that before leading into the game. They were so disappointing in that final 2/3 of that game last week against the Ravens.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins, certainly disappointing, and I think it kind of magnifies the need for the Dolphins to play from ahead. This is like when Tua Tagovailoa has his hand in the pocket for kind of more than 2.5 seconds. This is just an entirely different offense. And they really need to be playing from ahead, I think, to have maximal success. Now, can they do that in every game? Of course, their offense is good enough to jump out to a lead. But I do think that kind of highlights a major weakness of this team, not to mention really devastating injuries, especially Bradley Chubb getting hurt, tearing an ACL with 3 minutes left in a game down 30. Just brutal, especially it's not just the injury for the season. It goes into next year as well. You really hate to see that. But to this game, I think this is mostly a play kind of on the Bills side of things, where I think their offense is massively, massively, massively overrated since Joe Brady has, I don't know if I could overstate that, enough.
I would say 4 massively personally.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. I may have said 5, 3, either way.
No, it's stronger.
They have decided to basically become like the Falcons North. They're running a ridiculous rate over expectation. The passing offense is really struggling even when they are throwing. It's, I think, very much a function of a lot of throwing to running backs. This is still a team priced as like, oh, they have Josh Allen, they're amazing. It doesn't really matter if you have Josh Allen if you're not going to let him throw in early downs, which is this team is just absolutely allergic to throwing since Joe Brady has taken over. But on the flip side, this defense has been tremendous over the last 2 months, which is not something I thought I'd be saying, considering I was really fading this Bills defense for the better part of a year, from the middle part of last year to the middle part of this year. But this is a team allowing the second least amount of separation. They're back to kind of top 5 in quick pressure rate. I guess not giving Von Miller some snaps has really helped them in a weird way. But this is a Bills defense, which is great, and a offense that really wants to slow things down, run the ball. The Dolphins, I assume we're going to be without Jalen Waddle again, also are a team who's really relying on their run game. I expect Raheem Mostert to be back. I expect this to be 2 very run-heavy teams, and I think the perception is like, oh, this is such a great over spot. Like, we've got a dynamic Bills offense and a dynamic Dolphins offense. Like, these guys are going to put up a lot of points, but this is just not the offenses that they're currently constructed and how they want to play. These are 2 teams who want to run the ball a lot, kind of grind the clock, grind the game. And still, yes, the Dolphins are dealing with some injuries, still a pretty good defense. Their run defense is still terrific and projects to be terrific. I expect a lot of kind of these slow stalled drives, a couple first downs here, there, and punts. And I expect this game to go below 49.5.
Okay, Drew, you're in agreement here. I mean, just talk a little bit first. I think Bills are third favorites for the Super Bowl right now. Yeah, could lose this game, be 10-7. Like, it's an amazing year, really, if you think about it. It's probably the most dramatic playoff year we've had since the new system.
Yeah. That said, we said it on this show. I think the 7-6 Bills were the ones that were 13 seconds away from beating the Chiefs, and they would have been your clear Super Bowl favorite that year if they'd win that game. And they were 7-6 this year, so the fact that they are on the precipice again shouldn't really shock anyone. But I agree with Judah that the current kind of market and just in general, like the current like football narrative-y discussion around who the Bills are feels like I'm taking crazy pills. Like, this is not a good offense. It is an absolute slog. Did you watch the Patriots game? They're at home. They got gifted short fields, like 5 downs in 5 series in a row, and they're just like, yeah, okay, we'll run. We'll kick a field goal. Like, I guess let's run Josh Allen some. Like, there doesn't seem to be vision. There doesn't seem to be much urgency, and it's afforded by the fact that their defense is playing phenomenally well. And the defense, I think, is actually a product of the middle portion of the season where they had those meaningful injuries, Milano probably being the most important. Like, it forced like McDermott to coach up the younger guys, and it took them 5 weeks to get them playing at above replacement level. Well, now they are playing above replacement level, and now Daquan Jones is back. Rasul Douglas was maybe the most impactful in-season move of any team made. And yeah, the Bills defense should probably be talked about in the rarefied air of some of the other top fives in the NFL. I would actually sincerely consider, are they better than the Ravens defense right now in terms of number 2 among the AFC playoff contenders? Like, I think it's worth talking about. And I think the matchup against the Dolphins, who are is Tua going to play? Do we really know that? Like, is the line kind of, to me, says there's a decent chance Tua doesn't go, which I haven't really heard a ton of talking about. But this is a kind of an interesting bad matchup for the Dolphins, every which way you wanted for their offense, as far as I can tell you. And I think it's a bad matchup for the Bills offense, the way that they're currently constructed. I don't know if you guys remember, but back in the day, the Bills had this unbelievable wide receiver, Stephon Diggs. He was running like incredible routes and just torching teams down the field. He did it to the Dolphins, actually, in week 4. And that guy is nowhere to be seen right now. I have zero clue why they have either phased him out of the offense or he is just not healthy enough to be contributing at the level he was earlier this season. But like, the idea that the Bills are all of a sudden going to show up and it's going to be that team we remember from a couple of years ago that was just knifing you down the field and then mixing in Josh Allen 20-yard scrambles, like, that's not this team right now. Like, I mean, maybe they get there. Maybe they've been keeping it in their back pocket. And now that this is like a super high leverage game that decides their season, maybe we see some of that, but I just don't get the sense that that's who they are right now. And, Josh Allen is dealing with some injury stuff. He took a stinger in the Patriots game. He may not be willing to kind of put his head down and get a hard yard in this one. That's entirely possible. He may do it and then get hurt and be out of this game at some point. Like, that wouldn't be shocking to me either. So if this is all of a sudden Kyle Allen instead of Josh Allen, I feel pretty outstanding holding an under 49.5. But all that said, this is I think that the entire handicap here and the reason that the under is such a strong total this week is just both perceptions of the Bills offense and defense are wrong right now. Their defense is better than people realize, and their offense isn't anywhere close to as good as people are rating them. And Dolphins are kind of a mystery. I mean, they've clinched. Like, they're going to the playoffs. Like, they're extremely, extremely beaten up. The Bradley Chubb injury obviously was sort of the showstopper, like the key, the headliner of what happened. But losing Xavier Howard in that game was maybe even more important, because now you're back to the defense that does not have enough bodies, and all of a sudden, guys like Kader Kohu, who was the guy that got picked on in the last Bills game. Well, now he's on a more important player, right? Like, so, there's definitely a lot of questions about this Dolphins defense if Howard is out for me. We already have kind of discussed the concerns about having already lost Jalen Phillips, having lost Jerome Baker, who was kind of at least carrying a ton of the weight in the sort of that second line there. So yeah, this Dolphins defense concerns me. The Dolphins offense concerns me. We know there's not going to be Jalen Waddle available here. No one has stepped up to fill that role as wide receiver 2 for the Dolphins. And I think, ultimately that spells trouble, because if you can bracket Tyreek Hill with Rasul Douglas and some of the quality safety play that the Bills have, then I think it could be another one of those games where Tua is stuck holding onto the ball if Tua is even going. So this is a weird one, and I think there could be some surprises coming. At least the way the market is sitting here, giving you an opportunity to swing away on the home team Dolphins at a very favorable +3 or +137 money line, to me tells me that there's somebody who has a suspicion that Tua may not play, and we'll see. But either way, the under I think is a stronger angle just based on the Bills' offense being overrated and the Bills' defense being underrated.
Okay, the under currently sitting at 49.5. Sam, you agree, and I guess you're with Drew on some of those points. The Bills' offense not being as good and their defense being better than the market suggests.
Yeah, I think the guys got some really good points. I think one word that Drew mentioned, perception, I think is the absolute key here. And like Drew said, Bills' defense is definitely better than it's currently thought to be. The offense certainly isn't as good as a lot of people would say it is. And I think with this, obviously the highest total of the week, 49.5, 50, whatever it is. But this is two teams I think people are projecting to be a bit of a shootout. And the reality, if you look at the last half a season, really, is that's probably not going to happen. McDaniel said he's not worried about the availability of Tua, but like Drew said, does that necessarily, because he is available, doesn't necessarily mean he will be playing. And ultimately with Tua, he had 5 300+ yards games in the first 10 weeks of the season, and since then hasn't had one, which I think is potentially like indicative of this offense hasn't quite been as effective. They've obviously really relied on the run at times, but I do get a little bit concerned with that. He hasn't been throwing as many touchdown passes in the second half of the season either. And I mean, I'd say, well, Josh Allen, you could definitely share similar things. They're really kind of relying on his legs, really. 8 rushing touchdowns in the past 5 games is fantastic. But ultimately, the guys that's not passing the football very effectively at all right now, which is a huge concern. And I think this is all kind of set up to be the narrative. It's going to be a shootout, these two good offenses. But I think ultimately you're looking at an offense that isn't as good as people think it is, and the Dolphins offense that might be hamstrung slightly. So I just think the under is the sensible play here. Especially I think with a really high total, generally the under is something you should probably have a look at. But this is one that I don't really see a reason to bet the over. I think it's very obviously going to be lower, which probably isn't a good thing to say. But yeah. I feel like when we all pick the same thing, we generally have quite a high success rate. I'm thinking.
High blowout rate. It either goes very well or completely terribly. So I'll tell you that much. It's one or the other.
Can I add one real quick thing about Tua? So in the same context that Trevor Lawrence, it's fine to be skeptical of him because of the shoulder injury. Tua's got a shoulder injury. Like that's the injury he's dealing with, right? And Sam's point is fair. Like maybe what I'm seeing in the market with so little respect for the Dolphins is people just being like, we saw the tape against the Dolphins. Tua was terrible. Like there's clearly something going on with the way he's throwing the football right now that is a question. And I mean, well, 1 week's not necessarily going to fix that. And if this game gets out of control, is it Mike White time at halftime? Keep Tua healthy, give him a little extra rest for, you're locked into the 6th. You're playing the Chiefs next week. Like that's a winnable game for you, I think, if you can get some guys right. So, I think there are definitely kind of, I think some second level aspects to this one where the Dolphins may not necessarily be treating this as sincerely as people think they should.
Okay, we lock in under 49.5. All those bets summarized on Matchbook Insights from Thursday. It is to the AFC West for the next 2 bets. Judah, we'll start with you. I had the misfortune in some ways in that late window. Every time they would go away from the main games, they would show the Chargers and the Broncos. It just came across as such a terrible game of football. But you have enough belief in this Broncos team on plus money here to back them at 234.
Yeah, I mean, if we had our podcast last week, this surely would have been my best bet, and that would have been Broncos -3 against the Chargers, or 3.5, wherever it
3.5, I think,
on Wednesday. And I think this is just like we can very clearly source what happened. The Broncos were 6-point favorites. Russell Wilson was ruled to be on the bench, and they moved to 3.5, 3. The market thinks that Russell Wilson is a 2.5 to 3 point downgrade over Jarrett Stidham. I don't think that's true. I think it actually probably is a little. maybe it's a point, but also that is kind of negated by the fact that the Broncos are going to play a different style of offense. They're not just going to kind of hide their quarterback and throw a bunch of, dink and dunks and just kind of bleed clock and try and win the turnover battle. They're going to run an actual offense. They're not going to run 10% over expected. They're going to pass at about a neutral clip. And I think that itself is an advantage, even if the quarterback might be a little worse. But ultimately, I just want to kind of fade the market's idea that Jarrett Stidham is meaningfully worse than Russell Wilson. I don't think that's true. I think we know who the Raiders are. I think we know who the Broncos are. I see them as still a better team than the Raiders, and with the home field advantage, I think this line is just off by 1.5 points, 2 points here.
Okay, 234 currently the price on the Broncos money line. Drew, if I saw this look ahead line of week 18, I'd be like, wow, what went right for the Chargers? We've clinched the division. We're just playing kids, or maybe we've more on the line than the Chiefs, whose season's already over. It's completely opposite, obviously. But the Chiefs haven't been great this season. Well, Chiefs haven't been great in the last few weeks. We're almost waiting for Mahomes. It feels like Tony Romo every week is willing Mahomes to get going. And look, they got the job done just about against the Bengals. But what sort of team will they play here? And why do you think the 236? Because I just had a look at the total there, 35.5 or something.
Yeah, no, I mean, we get to upgrade the Chiefs from Mahomes to Blaine Gabbert. The way Mahomes has been playing lately has been pretty bad. That is to say, I will still back the Chiefs in the playoffs with the prices right. But I don't know that this is like an earth-shattering downgrade, and the Chiefs are really packing in this game. Yeah, they're not playing for anything. I agree with that. But the Chargers are starting Easton Stick, guys. I am not, I'm not saying that he is like as bad as some of the other quarterbacks we've seen across this weird year of backup quarterbacks, but I am also not saying that he should be laying 3 points to anyone. And I think there are a lot of Chiefs who can benefit from this opportunity of getting more playing time. Andy Reid, we know, rests a lot of players, but I think there are kind of some fresh legs in that Chiefs group who actually might help elevate some levels of performance in some areas. And I'm not worried about Blaine Gabbert being able to carry the torch for one game against a Chargers team that is, well and truly packing it in. Now, it's worth noting that some of the Chargers players individually are playing a lot better since they fired Brandon Staley, and I guess that's maybe an effort thing, but it also might just be he was that bad of a coach thing. And if that ends up mattering here and I lose the Chiefs main line, so be it. But I'm just not prepared to live in a world where Easton Stick is a 3-point favorite over anyone. And Blaine Gabbert he's a relatively known quantity. He's not good, but he's not just absolute can't play quality of player. So I think the Chiefs are alive to still get the win. And I think, the Chargers can hit the hard reset next year.
Okay, we will move on to best week 18 long shots. And Sam, start with you here. You're going to lay the points for the Ravens against the Steelers. Obviously, Ravens have clinched the 1 seed here, so nothing to play for. But you still think there's juice in their price, -2.5.
Yeah, I'm actually being a bit of a hypocrite here because I haven't had a huge. I obviously had any other bets. I've been a little bit careful this week because there are a lot of games where their team's effectively playing for nothing and various things like that. But at the same time, I am jumping on the Ravens here who are playing for nothing. So basically, I think we've spoken about the Steelers a lot this season. The 9-7 record is so disgusting. It's as fraudulent as a record can be. Same record as the Rams, who I think are just such a better team in nearly every single way. So look, there's a couple of things I think kind of really have made me quite bullish on the Ravens here. One, they don't need to play their starters. However, it's going to be 3 weeks until those guys play if they don't get any snaps at all here. So I think there is a chance we will see some of them play. Not Lamar Jackson, I'd be very surprised, but I think we will see more starters get at least some sort of time on the field than potentially it's being priced as. Then there is simply Harbaugh. This is a guy who treats every preseason game like the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter if it's their backups. They are a team that win games when it kind of they necessarily shouldn't be putting in the effort. And I think this is a kind of cultural thing that really does matter. And it's still a divisional game at the end of the day. I really do think we're going to see the Ravens kind of show up here and play well. And ultimately, other than that, we're kind of we're facing a team with Mason Rudolph at quarterback, and I've seen people again on talk about he's had 2 good performances and talking maybe he could be the guy. He's not going to be the guy. He's never going to be the guy. He's not particularly good, and he's faced the Bengals and Seahawks. I think this is going to be a sterner test, even if it's going to be majority second stringers. I just think the Ravens are a far better team, better coached, and the Steelers just depth I don't think is particularly good. When I actually think the Ravens second string are probably better than half of the Steelers first string. So for me, it's pretty nice price, but Ravens minus 2.5.
Okay, yeah, the price, as Sam mentioned, 3.0 on the Ravens, laying the points 2.5. That is alternative handicap there. Judah, it's the Rams money line at the Niners. Drew, Rams have been strong for us the last few weeks. Pity they didn't win that epic game, Drew, against the Ravens a few weeks ago. However, they've been going okay offense-wise, I guess, but you're expecting them to come through here money line against the Niners this week.
Yeah, I think this is more so a play on just kind of how the market's approaching these teams who have nothing to play for, or for these, I shouldn't say nothing to play for, teams who have already kind of locked in their seating. We have the Browns, who are 6-point underdogs to the Bengals. We have the Chiefs, who are 3-point underdogs against the Chargers. And now I'm blanking on and the Ravens, who are also 3.5 underdogs. The Niners are in exactly that camp, and they are still kind of 3-point favorites. They have nothing to play for. There must be some expectation they're going to play their guys. I do not anticipate that to kind of be true. Or maybe it's saying that the Rams are going to be resting their guys because they don't have that much to play for. We've had Sean McVay had a similar instance of this in 2020 against the Cardinals. They played their guys. They won. I expect the Rams to be a full go here, and the Niners to kind of be exactly like all the other teams the market is pricing, with just like a 50% swing in the money line. For some reason, that's only like 10% for the Niners. I don't think they're going to be playing their guys. They're banged up. Get them their rest. I expect the Rams to be a full go, and this game is just materially mispriced. I would not be shocked if the Rams close this game as 2.5 3-point favorites. I really, really just don't understand the current price.
Okay, rewarding perhaps an early listener to maybe get the value of the early market. Don't wait till Sunday on that one. Perhaps if, as Judah said, that injury news or that team news comes through, we will go to best week 18 best bets. Not before we have Drew. Sorry, on this has become Drew Dinsick's best long shots of the week, because even Drew would have a bad week, yet the long shot would cruise in at 4.0, 5.0. You've had a couple of bad beats. I remember the Commanders won against the Eagles, Drew.
Oof.
So look, your record is 8-6, winning record, but when you're betting at these odds, you're up £300 basically per £20 stake on each selection. So you've made profit for the year, Drew. You're only sort of playing with the bookies' money, as they say. So take it away. Why the Giants will beat the Eagles.
Yeah, there's only the one super long shot this week with the Commanders, and all right, can't be part of that.
And
one.
the case, yeah.
Everything else is kind of right around there in the 5.5, 6 range. I thought about going back to war with the Panthers. I don't know why I thought about it, but I thought about it. Ultimately, we're going to go with the Giants here against the Eagles, and I mean. Where the state of the Eagles right now is really, really tough to wrap your head around. And I know that they could use a get right game more than basically any other team with like expectation of, contending for a Super Bowl. But there is a very realistic chance here that by about halfway through the game, the Commanders have put enough points on the Cowboys have put enough points on the Commanders that the Eagles won't be playing for anything. And at that point, I think it's pretty important for them to get their guys some rest. And so I think this could turn into the Marcus Mariota show over a meaningful portion of this game. The secondary for the Eagles is still an enormous problem. And actually, you've seen some emergence from some of the wide receivers for the Giants. I was like, I guess most of the competitiveness between the Rams and Giants was just Matt Stafford playing like a little bit airheaded, but there was definitely some signal, I think, in Hyatt's ability to create separation and make some big plays downfield. Wan'Dale Robinson's playing well, and I think ultimately with Tyrod Taylor driving the ship, this Giants team is probably being broadly underrated on offense. So if you can go score for score with the Eagles, which we saw them do a couple of weeks ago, I think this is going to be a pretty competitive game. It's in New York. And honestly, the Eagles could be playing for nothing by halftime. So we'll take a swing on NYG.
Okay, and speaking of swings, this seems like a bigger swing to me, but the best bet, week 18, best bet for Drew is going to be the Patriots minus 2.5 versus the Jets. So, wow, Sam's reaction there, we'll clip that one up. Ooh, off you go.
Yeah, hey, You want to bet on Bill Belichick's last game as a Patriot against the Jets?
Before he goes to the Chargers.
I'll do it. Yeah, happy to. Bill Belichick's defense playing well. They obviously haven't quit. I don't know if you watched that Bills game, but the Patriots had every incentive to just lay down and die after that kind of opening first quarter and a half. But they did not. They fought through it. And I think realistically, this is kind of a decent opportunity, not just for Belichick to kind of get one more against a team that he desperately hates. But the Jets aren't really likely to play for much. There are a lot of Jets on this team who are meaningful contributors this year who are going to be moving on because of the way that their cap is structured. And I think those guys making some business decisions in this one seems reasonable to me. So I think you could get a little bit of a laydown effort from some Jets defenders and some Patriots step up as Patriots look like they will have Trent Brown back. So their pass rush, their pass protection concerns should be somewhat ameliorated. And Zappe is not a quarterback I want to go to war with ever, but I don't mind him in the situation where you're giving him time and a Patriots team that is playing hard. So, not a super strong angle, surely, but it would be considering how long I've been playing NFL football, betting it, I guess, not playing, but playing in the betting markets, and how many times I've bet Belichick. It feels right to have some skin in the game in what might be his last game in Foxborough.
What might be his last game. Obviously, nothing confirmed as of yet, Sam. But look, Texans, we've covered this, Sam, so you've been brief enough, but you do like them as your best bet. Texans -1, CJ Stroud.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to say too much here, but we talked about it earlier. There is a golfing class between CJ Stroud and Gardner Minshew, and I think ultimately that's what it's going to come down to. The Texans, I just think they're such a better team. Better defense, better quarterback. That's ultimately what's going to matter here, and we're going to see a strong Texans victory, I think.
Okay, and the final word to you, Judah. And for what it's worth, I do sort of like this angle here. But Lions -3 against the Vikings. Obviously, Vikings against the Packers last week. A lot of open receivers, as you touched on. It'd be interesting who the starting quarterback, if that hasn't been confirmed yet, will be this week. But take it away for your bet here.
Yeah, I think if you kind of look at the totals market, it is implying that the Lions are not sitting their guys, because if they were sitting their guys, this total would not be sitting at 46, especially after opening at 45.5. Also, by every kind of note you can find, Dan Campbell is going to be playing his guys. He went on Detroit radio last night saying, crazier things in this league have happened. We're playing at 1:00. The Cowboys and Eagles are playing at 4. We're going to play to win. Also, everything we know about Dan Campbell would tell us that he's going to be playing his guys to win. Let's just take a step back. 2 weeks ago, we had a Vikings-Lions matchup, which closed at 2.5. I thought it was fair. That game should have been, 3.5, and that game was in Minnesota. Now we have a game in Detroit with the same line, and the only thing we've learned not the only thing, if we were to learn anything over the past 2 weeks, it would be upgrade to the Lions and downgrade to the Vikings. Yet this line kind of still sits at 3. It opened at 5.5, I believe, 4.5. I'm really not sure how this was bet down. This is a Lions team that's going to be playing for everything. From a fundamentals perspective, I think that initial look-ahead line was right. This is a Vikings team, which is just a complete kind of carousel of quarterbacks and whatnot. The defense, which has been so good over the second half of the season, has really struggled the past bunch of weeks. The Lions, as they showed 2 weeks ago, can pick apart this defense. The Lions themselves are pretty healthy. They're a far better team. I really just don't understand the kind of line movement. I will be taking the Lions at 3.
Okay, 193, the price on Matchbook. We are done. My thanks to the guys for the regular season. We'll be back next week as the wildcard weekend takes place, hoping for a few good matchups. Drew, less than a minute left. When you mentioned playing football there, did you ever play? And
No.
What would be your best?
I was a
position?
swimmer. I was a swimmer. Yeah,
Wow.
I swam through. I was basically so into it in high school. That was the only sport I was playing, and then I swam all 4 years in college. Yeah, so as soon as we put a bow on the 2023-2024 NFL season, it's time to get the handicap going for the Olympics, because it's coming, Betty. Yes. 2024 Paris. This is going to be big. 24. End of July. The last week in July is set aside your calendar, because we are betting swimming.
Reese McGettigan, Drew, keep an eye out for me. He's going to win gold medal for Ireland, and Ireland have a couple of medal chances. But look, that's a different podcast entirely. But we will cover that for sure. Ireland going to have a massive Olympics, which means we might win a medal or two, which is above our average. We've had some Olympic games where we haven't won a medal. But anyway, my thanks to the guys. Check out Matchbook Insights. Do hit that like button on YouTube stream. Subscribe completely for free so you don't miss any of our NFL playoff content. Until next week, enjoy the NFL this week. If having a bet on the Matchbook Betting Exchange, enjoy it, but please do responsibly. Take care. Bye-bye.